Beautiful sunset here over Denver, Colorado, the city of potholes. I'm Mike Farrington. Welcome back to my shop, aka the boardroom. I do label myself a dad, and as you can see, here's some proof. I'm not sure I would label myself an artist. I don't know how you achieve that title, but I certainly wouldn't want to be one of those guys who walks around and describes himself as an artist. But much like Sam Maloof, I do label myself a woodworker. But the title Kumiko Wall Woodwork just didn't quite flow. So during the course of this video today, I'm going to masquerade as an artist. So for those of you who don't know, Kumiko is an ancient Japanese tradition. I think it's a few hundred years old. And I was first exposed to Kumiko while reading the pages of Fine Woodworking. There's a furniture maker by the name of John Reed Fox who had a piece on the back cover, I believe, that had some Kumiko in the door panels of a cabinet that he'd built. And from the moment that I saw that piece, I just knew I had to explore this tradition of Kumiko. Well, fast forward a couple of years and a few attempts, and I've actually gotten pretty good at Kumiko. So this piece really had no formal design. It was really just an idea in my head. Part of that idea was that I wanted the frame to be as much a part of the piece as the actual piece itself. One of the ways that I thought that I could achieve that goal was to use the same wood that I made the frame out of in the Kumiko pattern. So I started making the frame with some Peruvian walnut, which I don't know if it's from Peru or not, and I certainly don't think walnuts grow on it, but it is beautiful wood, and I had a few thin strips of it laying around, so I laminated them together and started making the frame. So after getting two sides parallel on each of the frame pieces, I cleaned up one of the miters. And as a quick side note, if anyone's interested in seeing the process of how to make the Kumiko pieces, let me know in the comments section. I can put a video together on that. So here I'm setting up to put a rabbet on the inside edge of the frame, and you can see my router table is pretty poorly designed, and that's just a function of kind of upgrading and buying a new gear over the years. When something needs to be perfectly marked, marking knife is the only way to go. This one I made from an old jigsaw blade. And then plane down to your line. An accurate shooting board and a sharp hand plane is by far the best way to make a picture frame. So here's really the first shot of the piece coming together, and I've got these miter clamps holding it together. I'm just kind of doing the temporary clamp up to make sure everything fits. One of the things that drew me to Kumiko was that it just looked so complicated. But in reality, like any other woodworking project, it's just a series of steps, and you're cutting out parts and fitting them together. So if like me, you're drawn to this, give it a try. I think you'll do better than you expect. I think it's a great way to add some detail to any furniture project, and it's a good way to add a little bit of mystery to your furniture, because most people looking at your furniture have not been exposed to Kumiko, and they really can't even imagine how you would go about making something like that. And now it's time for the glue up. One little trick I like to do is to use very little glue on the inside edge of the miter, because it reduces the chances for squeeze out on the inside where it's the most difficult to clean up. So here's where I'm attempting to tie the Kumiko design and the frame together. I'm creating a little kind of internal frame that's made out of the same lumber, and I'm hoping that it creates a real nice contrast. The pattern that I'm assembling here is known as Asano-ha, which translated means hemp leaf. And it's important to note that there are a few different versions of this Asano-ha pattern. And in total, I think there's more than a couple of hundred patterns. This is a subject you could truly dedicate your entire life to studying and probably never master it. Up to this point, I've completed about 20 different patterns, and some of them are incredibly time-consuming to make. And to me, Kumiko is just one example that speaks to the ingenuity of Japanese carpentry. And also it speaks to the esteem that the Japanese culture has for woodworking. I think that's why people are so drawn to the various forms of Japanese carpentry. I know that's why I am. Here I'm just cleaning up the miters a little bit. Sometimes on these small projects you have to bounce around between, a couple of different tasks. I do find it challenging to kind of keep momentum going on smaller projects. You make a frame and you have to wait for it to dry, but at the same time, you want to keep the project moving forward. It's a challenge. So here I'm just running a shallow groove around all four sides of the frame, and what I'm doing here is I'm hiding the glue line between the two thinner strips of wood that I glued together. Cleaning up the outside edges on my ever trusty Ritter edge sander. Got this thing for 500 bucks off Craigslist. So I'm just doing the final finish sand here. I think I stopped at 400 grit, which in my opinion really is the minimum if you're going to be using an oil finish, which is what I'm going to eventually put on this piece. So here I'm just using Danish oil. Really, I'm just putting one coat on too. I usually kind of wipe everything down once and then hit it one more time. Let the oil soak in for a little bit and then just wipe it off. So while that's drying, I move back to the actual Kumiko pattern itself. And here I'm just kind of cleaning up any of the little discrepancies between the pieces. And I have my plane set up for the absolute thinnest shaving I can possibly get it to cut. So here it is, the start of the final assembly. At this point I was pretty excited to get this thing done. I was pretty happy with what I'd seen so far. This is always a great time in a project. It's interesting how I'm always in a hurry during final assembly because I'm usually so excited to get the piece put together. It really is my favorite time in a project, and you know, you'd think I'd take my time and kind of savor it, but no, I don't. So here's how I attach the rice paper. I just use what's called carpet tape. It's like double-sided tape. And I'm actually not really using rice paper. It's kind of more like a fabric, but it looks real nice. I think it's a little bit more durable. And, you know, it really has that good traditional rice paper look to it. So when putting on the rice paper, you only get one shot. So be, you know, slow and steady. Be careful. It'll come out real nice. Sharp blade. Anytime I'm using an oil finish, I always like to top it off with some wax. And here I'm using some tinted wax, and I think it fills the pores of the wood real nicely and gives it a good soft sheen as well. So my process for applying paste wax is after you let the oil finish that you use dry, come back with some either 3/0 or 4/0 steel wool and rub the wax in real good, real even. You want very little wax on the surface after you're done kind of rubbing it with the steel wool, and then after that, buff it out with some old cut-up white t-shirts. Couple 23 gauge pins to hold panel in place. I actually hold the gun in such a way that the nails don't totally countersink, and then I come back with a screwdriver and kind of bend them over to pinch the panel in place. Finish off with a couple still shots. Overall, I was really happy with how this turned out. I think this was a pretty successful experimentation, and I hope to do more of these in the future. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, let me know. I'd welcome the feedback. Till next time, thanks for watching.